As a congregation, we send our prayers for a complete healing of mind and body and spirit to Amy Albee, Beryl Shoshana bat Rachalea, Allison Jager Brisbane, Chana Tova bat Yehudit, Chaim ben Natalie, Chaya bat Yeda Rachel, Christine Kobo, Ronald Diamond, Ilana Goldschmidt, Chasha Etel bat Meir, Robert Leonard, Roger Marshall, Mary Martin, Masoda bat Sylvia, Ken Mesa, Harper Plotkin, Jackson Plotkin, Rabbi Barton Lee, Reuven ben Chaya, Shelley Raffleson, Shmulik ben Esther, Shandel bat Razel, Shalomit, Leah bat Sharon, Robert Switsky, Ida Wargon, Desiree Wattel, Miriam Weinberg, Nathan Willett. If there's anyone in the congregation who would like to say out loud the name of a loved one you would like us to take into our hearts with our own, please do so at this time. Let's all join together in the beautiful Debbie Friedman melody from Yishaberach, which can be found on page 511 in the middle of the page. Misheberach avotenu mekor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu kor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And let's join together now in a prayer for our country. If everyone would please turn to page 376. And we will read the bottom paragraph. O guardian of life and liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen. This Shabbat is once again, a Shabbat where we will read a magnificent Torah portion, Vayigash, and I look forward to learning in greater detail tomorrow morning at Chevra Torah, which will be at 8:45 in the Bendelin Conference Room. And then next Shabbat, as James is going to be announcing in a few minutes, we will learn both at Shabbat evening services and at Chevra Torah from one of the great greatest minds of our generation. Rabbi David Ellenson from the Hebrew Union College will be speaking from the pulpit and teaching Hever Torah next Shabbat. It is not to be missed, and we hope you will not miss it. Dr. Ellenson is the chancellor of the Hebrew Union College and was my teacher and ordained Rabbi Keller. And this will be the second time that Pam and Bruce Meyer have underwritten the Scholar in Residence of program of Rabbi David Ellenson in memory of their parents. And we will talk more about that next week, but you have to be here next Friday night and next Shabbat morning. I know a lot of you, 8:45 in the morning is too early for me, and I am never on time for Hever Torah study, ever, because we know, thank you, Sam, but you do not want to miss next Shabbat morning. Sam, I will be on time next Shabbat morning. I'm not on time for anything anymore. It's a function of my age, and I'm working on it. I know. I've reduced it down to within 10 minutes late, but not always. Anyway, someone laughed. Thank you. So I'm trying. That was not the purpose of what I wanted to talk about tonight. There are some improvisational moments in the beginning of this week's Parsha. Does anyone remember from your studies from Vayigash before who improvises a plea to Joseph at the beginning of this Parsha? Huh? Judah, the brother, the progenitor of the kingdom of Judah, Judea, Jerusalem. The Messiah comes from the line of Judah. He improvises. And then who's caught off guard by his improvised plea to Joseph? Joseph is, and Joseph, by the way, in rabbinic tradition, is the progenitor of the northern kingdom of Israel. And there's a Mashiach ben Yosef, too, a tradition where there's a Messiah, the son of Joseph, and a Messiah, the son of David. So Judah and Joseph are very important figures, characters, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that tomorrow morning, by the way. But they both have to improvise. Joseph is caught, if you remember, off guard by Judah's plea. Judah improvises his plea in the first place because Joseph wants Benjamin to be held back, and everyone goes Meshugana, and Joseph is caught off guard and ends up bawling, crying. So improvisation is a big part of this story, of this sort of concluding of the arc of Joseph and the brothers, although it'll be concluded in a couple of weeks. But improvisation is very important. I tell you about this because last Saturday, it was just me and Isabel for Hanukkah candles, just the two of us at my house. And it was about 9:30, and Isabel said, "Aren't we going to light Hanukkah candles?" I promise you, this has never happened before. I forgot. And I had no more presents, so I was kind of hoping she would forget too. She did very well for herself this year. Do not feel badly. So isn't it time to light Hanukkah? It was 9:30. I was tired. I had the Hanukkah, and then I realized I didn't get candles. Like, I ran out of candles. I had enough candles for a couple of days, and then we were out a couple of nights, and when you got to the nights where you need a lot of candles, namely night 8, I didn't have the kids on nights 4, 5, 6, and 7. I ran to Safeway, to the Jewish section. And they had yahrzeit candles, but no Hanukkah candles. And then I went to the closeout section with the Christmas stuff, and I saw some gelt, no candles. Ran over to Fry's across the street. Same thing, yahrzeit candles and some gelt left over. It was on sale, by the way, but it's kind of gross after a little while. So I came home and I said, "Sweetie, we don't have any Hanukkah candles. I got a little bit of a problem. Let's take the Shabbat candles, because they last about as long as the Hanukkah candles, maybe a little bit longer. But I don't have a Hanukkah with the holes big enough." So we took out foil, which was my idea, And then she folded the foil for the shamus a little bit higher than the other candles. And we had 9 Shabbat candles lit. We had to improvise. 2 stores. I wasn't going to go to a third store. I figured the fries over here on Tatum, that's the Jewish fries. On Tatum and Shea would have them, but I wasn't going to schlep. It was now 10:10. I got a couple other things at the store too, of course. And the long and the short of it is that we had to improvise. We had to take the foil out, take the Shabbat candles. It was perfect. It was just the 2 of us. I actually did have one more present for her that I remember that my head was, it must have been Christmas, must have confused me. So we lit the candles. It was a big, big fire because the candles for Shabbat are big, and we enjoyed ourselves very much. But improvisation is such a part of being Jewish. It's such a part of our story, and it's such a part of this parsha. The willingness to improvise on Judah's part and on Joseph's part in response is what brings the brothers back together. It's what reunites them. In improvisation, which is typically doing what we would otherwise think was unexpected because we're so programmed and so ritualized, and we always plan about what we're going to say and what we're going to do and how we're going to think, they allow themselves to get caught off guard, both of them. And that's the beauty of this parsha. One of the things that Rabbi Jonathan Sachs teaches about this parsha is this ability. He doesn't say this part, but he talks about their relationship and the reconciliation. That their reconciliation basically comes from this ability to improvise. I mean, how many times in our lives have we thought we were going to meet someone or call someone and be prepared for them to say something that would make us angry, that would make us respond defensively or, as it may be, aggressively or offensively? How many times were we pleasantly surprised that the conversation went better than we had anticipated? How many times were we caught off guard by the smallest of things that they said that they had never said before or expressed to us before? How many times did we go out to coffee with someone expecting to have a confrontation, and as we sit down, the first thing out of their mouth is, "I'm sorry, I hurt you, I know that I did," and we're totally taken aback. Like we have to improvise our response, because the response that we thought in the car on the way there, or the night before when we weren't sleeping and thinking about it, was anger and hostility and aggressiveness and all these things, and they come out of the gate telling us they're sorry for hurting us. How many times do we begin to write that email, and right before we're about to click the send, we read it again and we say, wait a second, there's an opportunity here for me to take what was otherwise going to be a really harsh email and make it a little bit more positive, and then we make it a little bit more positive, and then we change a word, and then we change a sentence, then we delete the whole thing and start over again. And the second email was much nicer than the first. These are all moments of improvisation, moments when we think that we're going to act one way, but we react another, and it's much more peaceful. Now to Rabbi Sachs. He says the following. This is how the brothers, who otherwise would have thought, Judah thought he was going to keep Benjamin. Judah is in a panic. Joseph is playing control, playing boss, playing gotcha, playing the dreams that I had a couple weeks ago in Vayeshev are coming true. You're all bowing down to me. Look at me, big and strong viceroy of the Pharaoh, right? And all of that goes away suddenly and quite dramatically between Judah's speech, plea, and Joseph's reaction, where he actually has to have everyone leave the room because he's crying so loud at this reconciliation. So this is what Rabbi Sachs says about distance, the plan that we had, and closeness, which is the improvised result, the surprising result. He says, right at the beginning of this story, when Joseph was sent by his dad to see how the brothers were doing, tending the sheep, they saw him, if you remember, they saw him coming from far away, from a distance. Remember, they say, oh, there's that dreamer who's coming to us. But the words that he underlines here is that they're coming, they see him from a distance. They can't see his face. All they can see is the richly ornamented tunic, the coat of many colors, that so upsets them because it constantly reminds them that it is he, not they, whom Jacob their father loves. From far away, we don't see people as human beings. And when we stop seeing people as human beings, and they become instead symbols, objects of envy or hate, people can do bad things to one another. We can do bad things to each other. The whole tragedy, he continues, of Joseph and his brothers was distance. They were too far apart in every way, which is why it was only when Judah came close to Joseph in this parsha, Vayigash, when he drew himself closer, that's the name of the parsha, that it was only then that this cold bitterness between them thawed, and they became brothers again, not strangers to one another. And that's what was a result of, or led to, if you will, the improvisation of Judah's plea. Too much distance and we freeze. But if we get too close, we can also injure one another. And that was the story of Jacob and Esau. Think about Jacob buying Esau's birthright. He stole his blessing. He wore Esau's clothes. He borrowed his identity. Even when they were born, Jacob was clutching in friction with Esau, clutching his foot, his heel. But here's this distance at the beginning of Vayigash. And Vayigash itself, just the first word of the parsha, teaches us that closeness and drawing close can not only remove the distance physically and emotionally and psychologically, but it can actually heal and repair our relationships. So on this Shabbat, I want us to be open to improvising, to be open to making that call, of possibility of making that phone call or writing that email, and then taking a second and think of the word Vayigash, of drawing close. Distance, not seeing someone's face or hearing their voice, can often make us angry or help us be angry, enable our anger and our rage and our fears and our hatred. But being open to drawing close, being open to pivoting and improvising in our relationships, hearing their voice, seeing their face, and then being pleasantly surprised about how well this conversation may be going, can ultimately take that separation and close it and make us closer. And Rabbi Sachs concludes, to sanctify is to separate. Think about Havdalah, right? We separate the wheat from but to draw close is, the Hebrew word is karov, which krovim, like relatives, close ones. Karov, which is also the Hebrew word for sacrifice, like korbanot, sacrifices to God. It is when we sacrifice ego and presuppositions about how conversations are going to go, when we sacrifice the distance that we've drawn between ourselves and other people, that's when, in the case of korbanot, we draw close to others and ultimately close to God. The most beautiful symbol, he finally says, of the problem and its resolution in all of our relationships is found in this word, Vayigash. Are we willing to, ready and able, to draw close, to improvise, to take what it is that we thought going into the conversation, or in the email exchange, or in the text exchange, or in the relationship that we have not reconnected or rekindled in years and years and years and years? Are we open to the possibility of becoming close? So distance damages us. It damaged the relationship between Judah and Joseph. Vayigash, drawing close, Judah's act of drawing close, not only restored it, but ultimately redeemed it. And in redeeming it, redeemed all of them, and ultimately Jacob, from the hatred and the jealousy and the rage that undermined their relationship. Our greatness as a people, I believe, is the people of Israel, of Joseph, and the people of Judah, Jerusalem, the Messianic age, David, as the children of these folks, that we have learned from this parsha that Vayigash is redemptive. Drawing close makes the future possible, makes peace possible, makes love possible. And that ultimately is what comes from the ability to improvise, the ability to think different than what we had scripted out in our heads before. On the Shabbat, I encourage all of us to think about improvising. You don't need to worry about, and I'll get some candles before next Hanukkah. We don't need to worry about the details. Let it happen. And then, if it's not happening in the way it's supposed to happen, make it happen. Improvise and open your minds and your hearts to these relationships and moments of transcendence and connection with God and with others. Shabbat Shalom. Speaking of close ones, it's great to have a very close friend on the Bima, Mr. James Levy, who is a member of our board of directors and a member of our executive committee. He's actually the secretary of our board here.